Hi, everyone. Today is Thursday, March 12th, 2026, and this is the New Jersey Assembly outreach presentation. Tonight, we are going to cover the Unanimous Declaration of Independence. We're also going to cover a graphic that shows the power flow of government and how government, the for, of, and by the people government, is supposed to be structured. And we can get into a discussion afterwards about, I know some of you may be hearing this for the first time and may not have some context as to, what we're doing here. But just a little gist is that the New Jersey Assembly is the land and soil jurisdiction government. So we are not an organization, some patriot group, or just a bunch of people that are getting together and just shooting the breeze and complaining about the state of affairs that we're finding ourselves in. We are the living men and women on our state. And I say living men and women because with the birth certificate, they've actually converted everybody to be a corporation, a legal fiction, and a dead entity. And there's all sorts of shenanigans that they have done all throughout the years. Before we get into that, I'm going to hand it over to our Marshal at Arms, Dan. And I also want to acknowledge Alice Dablosky is one of our coordinators. It's good to see you on here, Alice. And I'm going to hand it over to Dan to read the Bivens.
Thank you, Tammy. The Bivens Declaration. This meeting is private. Bearing false witness, misrepresentation, and posting inflammatory rhetoric in public forums is forbidden and shall be addressed in an appropriate manner. To eliminate all conflict and false allegations, is there anyone in attendance in today's meeting that is a member or agent of any law enforcement agency or public agency of the federal, state, city, county, or township agencies present? Anyone who is here under false pretense, anyone who is working for any foreign government, including the Territorial United States or Municipal United States, anyone who's being paid or coerced to be here, must fully disclose their presence and purpose now or leave this conference call. If they subsequently show up as federal witness, they are discredited for failure to disclose. Is there any response to the Bivens decision for the first time? Is there a response for a second time? Is there a response for a third time? Hearing no response to this Bivens decision, this meeting shall now proceed. Back to you, Tammy. You're muted. There you go.
Thank you. And so thank you for reading that. For those of you who are wondering what the heck that is that Dan just read, it actually is a court decision that came out in 1971, and it's Bivens versus 6 unknown agents. And it's basically protecting us from anybody who is here with the federal government or the municipal government and takes what we say out of context and uses it against us, and vice versa. If there is somebody that is working for the federal or corporate government, it protects them as well, so that they're not asked to testify and take what they heard here tonight at this meeting and use it for a different purpose. So it's protection for both. We welcome any people that work for the federal government, or we call it the corporate government or de facto government. We welcome them to come because, we believe that most of them have been acting in honor and serving, to the, I say that kind of shyly, like acting in honor, but, they were acting in a capacity that they thought was a lawful government. And what we have right now is not a lawful government. It's actually, and I'm not talking about just the corruption. I'm talking about the fact that it is a corporation, and it's a foreign corporation. It is, a franchise of the British Territorial and the Papist municipal governments. For tonight's purpose, we are going to review the Declaration of Independence. So I'm going to share my screen here. Oh, and first I'd like to show you guys, we call it our TASA website. Okay, So I'm going to copy this. I'm going to put it in the chat. Hopefully everybody knows how to grab things in the chat. If you don't, let me know. And let's see. This way you guys have this this website already at your fingertips. It's in the chat. But TASA stands for the American State Assemblies, and then it's American State Nationals. But this has a wealth of information. I mean, you could go through this website and get so much information. And I'll just scroll a little bit through here. There's some videos. This gives you a history of our hereditary head of state. Right now, so we had James Clinton Belcher was our hereditary head of state. And he recently passed away in September. He was 81, I believe. But his son has taken over, and his name is Eric Belcher. But if you keep moving down the line here, and when I say all this information, there's so much here, you know, so if you want to learn like why we are a lawful government, because, you know, anybody can get together and assemble. You know, we have the freedom to do that. However, there can only be one lawful government, right? And so this is the original government that we had dating back to 1776. So James Clinton Belcher, his family lineage goes back to the original Federation. So, and Federation should not be confused with the word federal, and we'll go over that a little bit later. But just to scroll down here, there's a lot of information. And if you click here, click to continue your education, this will take you to even more information. We've got the 3 constitutions, because we do have 3. I'll review that a little later. And it has the Declaration of Independence and all sorts of really great stuff on here. So I really encourage everybody to go on here, if at all, if anything, just to get more educated. It's a wealth of knowledge. I know when I first learned about American State Nationals, this website was a little overwhelming for me. It took me a little while to kind of warm up to it and feel comfortable to navigate through it. But, you know, I don't like to, hoist, my experience onto anybody else. This is a great website. And if you click on webinars, it'll take you to all sorts of other videos and podcasts. If you hit the state coordinators, you could click on it. It'll take you to, all 50 states. And if you click on, New Jersey or whatever, you'd get that information. And then this is other important information. And then there's a whole wealth of stuff down here. It talks about our paperwork and why our paperwork. It really dates back to the 1779 Naturalization Act. So that's what we, back in 1779, they recognized that we were living amongst, even though we won the American Revolutionary War, not everybody wanted to declare themselves as Americans. So we were living amongst Spaniards, Englishmen, Scotland, Scottish people, all sorts of different nationalities. And, we wanted to be able to recognize people who wanted to declare themselves to be Americans. And so they came up with the Naturalization Act of July of 1779. And so our paperwork reflects the same wording and things that were included in that declaration back in 1779. And then we've got all 50 state assemblies, federal record, all the different, we've got a couple of laws that we put into place recently. Because before we were summoned back into assembly back in 2019, I joined the New Jersey Assembly back in 2022, but we were summoned back into session in 2019. And since then, we had put, some laws into place. We hadn't had any laws, drafted or approved or voted on for over 160 years. So, this is something to keep in mind, as far as learning about all 50 states are in session, and they are doing what we are doing here on New Jersey. Some are a lot further along than we are, and we're hoping this year to get all of our positions, elected positions filled. So this is the TASA website, and now I'm going to go to, let's see if I have this. All right, so I'm going to show a couple of different versions, and the reason why, hold on a second, let me pull that up. Let's see, is this it? Oh, no, here it is. So this is what we like to show people because it shows that this I think was the original draft. And it says in Congress, July 4th, 1776, but notice that it says the unanimous declaration of the 13 united, and then in all, in more profound writing, it says States of America. So I just wanted to point that out, but we are going to read it from the other one because this is more legible. The other one was too small. All right. Now notice it says in general Congress assembled, right? When in the course of human events it becomes necessary for one people to dissolve the political bands which have connected them with another, and to assume among the powers of the earth the separate and equal station to which the laws of nature and of nature's God entitle them. A decent respect of the opinions of mankind requires that they should declare the causes which impel them to the separation. And I'm going to pause there for a minute because, what we have going on today is actually really no different than what our founding fathers were dealing with back in the 1700s. What we have is a political parties that are corporations that have unlawfully converted people into their citizenry, and what this is showing is that under the laws of nature and of nature's God entitle them. When it uses the word entitle, that means that we have the power. We have the power to declare our separation from those kinds of governments. All right? We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among there are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, that to secure these rights, governments are instituted. Now, this is an important part. Governments are instituted among men, deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed. And I just want to drive that part in really hard, because there are a lot of, there's Supreme Court cases that we can refer to that even back up this founding document. One that comes to mind is Cruden versus Neal, where it says that no man has the authority to govern over another without his consent. Okay? So if you don't give the consent to the government in which is governing over you, you have that right. You have the power to not consent to it. All right, moving on. That whenever any form of government becomes destructive of their ends, it is the right of the people to alter or abolish it, and to institute new government, laying its foundation on such principles and organizing its powers in such form as to them shall seem most likely to affect their safety and happiness. Now tell me, how many of you, when you're traveling down the highway and the speed limit is 65 and you're going 70, 75, but you see a police officer and all of a sudden the panic mode comes on and you're pumping your brake? That's called, that's called, being fearful of your government, right? You're living in fear. That's not what our policemen were supposed to do. They were supposed to ultimately be peacekeepers, right? And in our jurisdiction, under the American government, if there is no victim, there is no crime. So unless you harm somebody or you harm their property, there is no crime. All right, moving on. Prudence indeed will dictate that governments long established should not be changed for light and transient causes. And accordingly, all experience hath shown that mankind are more disposed to suffer, while evils are sufferable, than to right themselves by abolishing the forms to which they are accustomed. And isn't that the truth today? How many people are so fearful of their government, that we've got evil amongst us. I mean, so much evil that is going on. I mean, we could talk all night about the kind of evils, from pay to play to Jeffrey Epstein, blackmail, child sex trafficking, and satanic ritual abuses, and all sorts of evils that's going on. And so it is our right and our duty. It's really our duty to get rid of these evil entities that are, governing over us. Moving on. But when a long train of abuses and usurpations, preferring invariably the same object, evinces a design to reduce them under absolute despotism, it is their right, it is their duty to throw off such government and to provide new guards for their future security. Such has been the patient sufferance of these colonies, and such is now the necessity which constrains them to alter their former systems of government. The history of the present King of Great Britain is a history of repeated injuries and usurpations, all having in direct object the establishment of an absolute tyranny over these states. To prove this, let facts be submitted to all a candid world. He has refused his assent to laws and most whole form and necessary for the public good. He has forbidden his governors to pass laws of immediate and pressing importance, unless suspended in their operation till his assent should be obtained. And when so suspended, he has utterly neglected to attend them. All right, and I just want to pause here for a second. I want to kind of bring you back to that moment in time where, we had already self-governing men and women. Okay, that's what these people were doing in the colonies. They were self-governing. That means that they were managing their affairs themselves. They didn't need, the king to rule over them and tell them what to do and to press, taxes upon them and have their British military patrolling the streets and all the other things that they were doing. And like it says here, the governors to pass laws. And so, this is where they put their foot down, because they did not want and didn't need to be usurped. They were managing things quite fine, all on their own. All right, moving along. He has refused to pass other laws for the accommodations of large districts of people, unless those people would relinquish the right of representation in the legislature, a right infamitable to them and formidable to tyrants only. He has called together legislative bodies at places unusual, uncomfortable, and distant from the depository of their public records, for the sole purpose of fatiguing them into compliance with his measures. Now think about that. What's going on today in the court system? Okay? This is what they do with the courts. They pull people into their carpetbagger courts and fine them with all sorts of ridiculous summonses. And in addition to the people paying fines on those summonses, they actually have created bonds. There's deals going on in the background that people aren't even aware of, where they create bonds. As soon as they get a summons, a bond is issued. So, and there's a whole other financial system and accounting that's going on behind the scenes that people have no idea about. All right, moving on. He has dissolved representative houses repeatedly for opposing with mainly firmness his invitations on the rights of the people. He has refused for a long time after such dissolutions to cause others to be elected, whereby the legislative powers incapable of annihilation have returned to the people at large for their exercise, the state remaining in the meantime exposed to all the dangers of inflation. Gosh, it's hard to read these F's and S's. Inflation from without. The convolutions within. He has devoured to prevent the population of these states for the purpose obstructing the laws for naturalization of foreigners, refusing to pass others to encourage their migrations hither, and railing the conditions of new appropriations of lands. So this is no different here, right? It says he's obstructing the laws for naturalization of foreigners. So what we have going on is people have, recognized that the birth certificate unlawfully converted them to a U.S. citizen, which is a British territorial citizen. And when we figure this out, when we correct the record, we then fill out our paperwork. But we have these Cretans who are, demoralizing us and demonizing us for doing so. They're attaching a label to us and calling us insurrectionists and rebels and combatants and all these other names. Another one is a sovereign citizen. So if you hear anybody call an American state national a sovereign citizen, just know that there is no such thing, because a sovereign citizen is an oxymoron. A sovereign is somebody that lives under God's laws and is not indebted to any government. A citizen owes its allegiance to a government. That's why they call, U.S. citizens 14th Amendment citizens. They created a citizenship that is foreign to America. And now that we've figured it out and we're getting back and correcting the record, now they're trying to demonize us for doing that as well. So it's no different. Back then it was just a different time. Different circumstances, but very similar. All right. Let's see. Where did we leave off here? He has obstructed the administration of justice by refusing his affiant to laws for establishing judiciary powers. So basically, he's trying to take away judiciary powers and enforce his own, power. He has made judges dependent on his will alone for the tenure of their offices and the amount and payment of their salaries. So again, bribing judges with salaries, right? Like, you're going to do it my way or you're not going to get paid, right? He has erected a multitude of new offices and sent hither swarms of officers to harass our people and eat out their substance. Okay, this is what's happening today. What happens to U.S. citizens if you don't pay your IRS taxes? Which is really, it's a voluntary compliant system. But they harass people. They bring their armed guards, right? These are all things that can happen to unsuspecting people that don't have the background information of what we're doing here with the American State Assemblies. Correcting your political status is necessary to get out of that entanglement that they have you in, forcing all these taxes and statutes and codes on you. All right. He has, and Paul, I think you were speaking before we started and people started hopping on. You were talking about how, your sons and daughters, can't even afford to buy a house. Like the idea of working and making a decent living and being able to afford to live is not even, a thought for our kids. It's no wonder why we have adult children still living in home with their parents, because they can't afford it. All right. He has kept among us in times of peace standing armies without the consent of our legislature. He has, and we could talk about the Constitution at another time, but, later on when we did get into Constitution, we didn't give any delegated authority for our military to go over to foreign countries and get into wars to, quote, free their people. That's their job to do. And most of these countries, by the way, I think we're shown a different story of what's really going on over there, but most of them are fine, just fine without us getting involved. And I think that most countries say that they hate us because we have set up shop in their country and are trying to take over their countries. So it's no different when the British Army came here to America. They set up their armies here, and they're trying to, overpower us and push their authority onto us. He has effected to render the military independent of and superior to the civil power. He has combined with others to subject us to a jurisdiction foreign to our Constitution and unacknowledged by our laws, giving his assent to their acts of pretended legislation. For quartering large bodies of armed troops among us, for protecting them by a mock trial from punishment for any murders which they should commit on the inhabitants of these states, for cutting off our trade with all parts of the world, for imposing taxes on us without our consent, for depriving us in many cases of the benefits of trial by jury. And think about this. When you go to a court, I don't know if anybody on this call tonight has ever been to a municipal court hearing for maybe a traffic ticket that they received, but there is no trial by jury. You're already convicted and you are guilty, and it's up to you to prove your innocence. And that those judges are committing barratry by practicing law on a bench. That was never supposed to be the case. For transporting us beyond seas to be tried for pretended offenses, for abolishing the free system of English laws in a neighboring province, establishing therein arbitrary government, and enlarging its boundaries so as to render it at once an example and fit instrument for introducing the same absolute rule into these colonies. For taking away our charters, abolishing our most valuable laws, and altering fundamentally the forms of our governments. For suspending our own legislatures and declaring themselves invested with power to legislate for us in all cases whatsoever. He has abdicated government here by declaring us out of his protection and waging war against us. He has plundered our seas, ravaged our coasts, burnt our towns, and destroyed the lives of our people. Well, gee, I think of, the fires in Hawaii. I think of the fires in California. There's so many things that are so reminiscent to the words in this founding document. He is, at this time, transporting large armies of foreign mercenaries to complete the works of death, desolation, and tyranny, already begun with circumstances of cruelty and perfidy, scarcely paralleled in the most barbarous ages, and totally unworthy the head of a civilized nation. He has constrained our fellow citizens taken captive on the high seas to bear arms against their country, to become the executioners of their friends and brethren, or to fall themselves by their hands. He has excited domestic insurrections amongst us and has endeavored to bring on the inhabitants of our frontiers, the merciless Indian savages, whose known rule of warfare is an undistinguished destruction of all ages, sexes, and conditions. In every stage of these oppressions, we have petitioned for redress in the most humble terms. Our repeated petitions have been answered only by repeated injury. A prince whose character is thus marked by every act which may define a tyrant is unfit to be the ruler of a free people. Nor have we been wanting in attentions to our British brethren. We have warned them from time to time of attempts by their legislature to extend an unwarrantable jurisdiction over us. Now, take note with this word right here, that they're trying to extend an unwarrantable jurisdiction. This is so important because most of us today have no idea what the word jurisdiction even means. Okay, we're going to review that in a little bit. But the British were trying to impose a jurisdiction over them. They had already declared they came over from the mainland to America to seek freedom, religious freedom, freedom without, somebody ruling over them. And yet here comes the king, pushing his jurisdiction over them. We have reminded them of the circumstances of our emigration and settlement here. So we reminded them of the circumstances. Why we emigrated over here and left the mainland was because of these same usurpations and tyrannical actions. We have appealed to their native justice and magnanimity, and we have conjured them by the ties of our common kindred to disavow these usurpations, which would inevitably interrupt our connections and correspondence. They, too, have been deaf to the voice of justice and consanguinity. We must, therefore, acquiesce in the necessity which denounces our separation and hold them as we hold the rest of mankind, enemies in war, in peace, friends. We, therefore, the representatives of the United States of America in General Congress, assembled, appealing to the Supreme Judge of the world for the rectitude of our intentions, do in the name and by authority of the good people of these colonies, formally publish and declare that these united colonies are and of right ought to be free and independent states, that they are absolved from all allegiances to the British Crown, and that all political connection between them and the state of Great Britain is and ought to be totally dissolved, and that as free and independent states, they have full power to levy war, conclude peace, contract alliances, establish commerce, and to do all other acts and things which independent states may of right do. I'm just going to pause there for a minute. I know we only have a little bit left, but I want to point out commerce here, okay? Because commerce is us doing trade on the high seas and navigable inland waterways, okay? and for the support of this declaration with a firm reliance on the protection of divine providence, we mutually pledge to each other our lives, our fortunes, and our sacred honor. And then signed by, the president. And then, the original document had everybody's signatures. But anyway, they denounced their they denounced their allegiance with Great Britain and declared their separation from them. Now, how many of you today know that that is the very government today that is ruling over you? How many people knew that? Lee? Oh, that's good, because not many know that. I'm going to stop screen sharing this. I want to screen share. I'll pause here for a second because I got more stuff that I'd like to share with you. But I'd like to open it up for any questions or comments or anything. This is a document, I believe, that our schools really should be hammering into the minds and memories of our students. But I'll open it up to you guys, see if you have anything.
It's just interesting that, so many of the problems that he's stating there still hold true today. I mean, maybe we actually never rectified it. Ever. Really.
Well, we did. It almost lasted for almost 100 years.
Mm-hmm.
But from after winning the Revolutionary War, leading up to the Civil War, that was the time period in which we were truly free, in which we saw a real American government. So the so-called, it wasn't really a civil war, it was actually a mercenary conflict. We're not going to get into that tonight. And if you guys want to see that presentation, I do have the playback for it on our YouTube channel. And I'll make sure to share that in the chat so you guys can connect to our YouTube channel and see all the videos that we have posted up there. But yeah, we did have it functioning for almost 100 years.
I'm curious. I have a question.
Yeah.
The organization, and I mean, if I'm off topic, then you just, we can talk about it another time. How is this, or is it your goal to have a convention of states? And I know that there was an article in the Constitution that demarks that as the Constitutional Convention. Are you aware of that, or what I'm talking about?
I'm aware of those organizations, but what they're trying to do, so we'll get into this in a little bit because this is another mind-blowing truth, is that we don't have one constitution. We actually have three. And I have a graphic that I'd like to share with you in just a minute where we could go over some of these things. But I just want to make sure, does anybody have, before we move on, anybody have anything that they'd like to ask? And by the way, you can unmute yourself and just say, may I? Or you could use the reaction tools and raise your hand, whichever you feel most comfortable with. All right, I'm going to move on to our next slide here. Give me a second. Let's see if this is, no. Let's see. Okay. All right. So I want to go over this really quick before we get into the other slide. Does somebody have a hot mic? Oh. Yeah, if your mic is not muted, if you could just mute it. All right, so self-governance versus statutory governance. Okay, so right now what we have is statutory law, okay? It's not real laws. These are codes, statutes, regulations, policies. I mean, there's so many different words for it, but it's a statutory governance. So the difference between self-governance is rooted in natural law and moral duty. Okay? Statutory law or governance is rooted in statutes, codes, and regulations. Self-governance is authority arises from conscience and accountability. Okay, back in the day, we used to have the 10 Commandments that were listed in our public schools. And statutory governance, we have authority rises from external enforcement, which is why we have to have a police state. How much law enforcement do we actually need? We weren't supposed to ever have police officers, like municipality police officers. What we were supposed to just have is an American elected sheriff and their deputies. And these were only, they were peacekeepers in our counties. And then I believe we had troopers and, what's the other one that I'm thinking of? Rangers, troopers or rangers.
Constables.
Okay? Yeah. All right. Self-governance, men and women govern their conduct voluntarily, right? This is the reason why we've become a nanny state, is because we have relied upon people taking care of our business for us, and we go to an election poll, every 2-4 years and vote for a bureaucrat to basically run things for us. Okay? Statutory governance is behavior is controlled through compulsion and penalty, right? But if you're a self-governing man or woman, you know in your conscience the difference between right and wrong. Law is understood as what is right. In statutory governance, law is treated as what is written. Self-governance, this is why they have, 80 million statutes and codes. Did you guys know that there were that many? Yeah, over 80 million statutes and codes. Self-governance requires discipline and self-restraint. Statutory governance assumes lack of restraint, substitutes oversight. Self-governance presumes a morally capable people. Statutory governance presumes a managed population. Self-governance relies on honor and integrity. Statutory governance relies on compliance and fear of consequence. Self-governance, consent must be knowing and voluntary. Statutory governance, consent is often presumed or implied. Self-governance, justice seeks restoration and balance, right? So think about this one, justice, in our court system today, people usually have to hire an attorney. It's causing thousands of dollars for them to represent you. And they're trying to get a settlement that has to pay for all the attorney fees and then maybe leaves you something, a little something, in return, right? In our common law courts, we're just seeking to make things right. We're not seeking to enrich ourselves. So if I tripped on a sidewalk out, on a public road, I'm going to seek, and I had to go to the hospital or something to that effect. I'm going to seek for the people responsible taking care of those public roads, that they're going to pay for my bills and they're going to fix that sidewalk, right? That's restoration and balance. That's not me saying, hey, okay, I'm going to use this as an opportunity to make thousands of dollars, right? In a statutory governance, justice seeks punishment and revenue. Self-governance, order is maintained internally. Statutory governance, order is imposed externally. Self-governance, peace is preserved through responsibility. Statutory governance, peace is enforced through authority. Self-governance, minimal need for administrators. Statutory governance, expanding need for agencies and officers. Self-governance, law is timeless and principled. Statutory governance, law is changeable and political. Self-governance, men and women remain sovereign in capacity. Statutory governance, individuals function as legal persons. Self-governance, government serves the people. Statutory governance, people serve the system. Okay. Does anybody have any questions on any of these differences between a self-governing body and a statutory governance? It's kind of like common sense, right? You know, trying to get back to common sense. I have to laugh when I read the signs on the highways, and it reminds you to wear your seatbelt, right? As if I need, you know, a parent to remind me to put my seatbelt on. But these are just the little nuances that we've dealt with that's been conditioning us to need, you know, a nanny to watch over us or Big Brother to watch over us, right? Because we can't do it for ourselves. All right, the next one I want to share with you guys. Okay. So U.S. corporations pretending to be our government. Ever wonder why things get worse year after year and nothing ever gets better? These are for-profit corporations that keep controversy going. A state of war has been going on for over 160 years. They have incorporated versions of everything, every county, every state, every province, every department, every agency, and none of them are your government. Many are not even chartered in your country and are operating out of home office somewhere else. And I mean that wholeheartedly. I mean, Paul, you just said, why are our senators going over to other countries? It's because they work for those corporations from those countries. Why does this matter? They make the rules, laws, statutes, codes, mandates, and you follow them or else. So this is just a little proof. I mean, you guys can take a screenshot of this from your computer if you'd like. But these are all, are you guys familiar with the organization called Dun & Bradstreet? Okay, so these are the DUNS numbers of the United States Government, Inc. Congress, United States, Supreme Court, United States, U.S. Department of Defense, U.S. Department of Justice, U.S. Internal Revenue Service, U.S. Food and Drug Administration. I mean, these are all the DUN numbers that you could go look up for yourself so you could see the proof. You know, and this graphic, by the way, I have to give credit to the Pennsylvania Assembly for sharing this with us. But I do have the DUNS numbers for the state of New Jersey, and you could go look that up. I don't have it with me right now, but you know, if anybody wants it, I could share that. And any of these, if you go to dnb.com right here, you could go plug in these numbers, okay? And you could, you know, go see the organization for yourself. Go see that it's a corporation. It tells you right there. And it'll say providing governmental services. Okay. And now the last graphic that I want to show. Do you guys have any questions? Did everybody take a snapshot of this? You got it? Okay. All right. All right. So this is, oh God, I'm trying to get this to get up here. Okay. The American government is not a democracy. Okay. Do you ever wonder why when you're listening to the TV and you hear presidents saying, you know, this is a threat to our democracy? You know, you hear them in debates and you hear it on the news, you hear it all over the place. A democracy, a democracy. Well, the American government is not a democracy. This we do know because we learned in our history books that we are a republican form of government. And America is a constitutional republic, which means that we are a republican form of government and a federal government established under a constitutional framework in the form of 3 service contracts. So I want you guys to take a look at the middle here, okay? You could look this up yourself, 1824 Webster's Dictionary. If you look up the word federal, or if you look up the word constitution, it'll say contract. Okay, so both of those words, going back to the 1800s, and 1700s for that matter, the word federal means it's a contracted government. Okay, so if it's a contracted government, who contracted with them? That's what you have to ask yourself. Who contracted with them? Anybody know? You guys could just unmute yourself, or anybody know? Nobody wants to talk? You guys sleeping? Well, it was the American government. The American government contracted, okay? And the American government capital is not in Washington, D.C. It's in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. And anybody with half a brain could recognize this because all of the founding documents was signed in Philadelphia. Okay? The national government is a separate and supreme government occupying the land and soil of each nation state. So each of our state assemblies and each of our county assemblies are our national government. Okay? We contracted with the federal government. The federal government is in Washington, D.C. So when we were creating the federal government, we realized that we needed to have a neutral place on our land for them to conduct their business. So we delegated 10 square miles in Washington, D.C. for them to conduct their business. Okay? Lee, go ahead.
Hi, sorry, thanks. So is this, we created this federal government to do those 19 services for
Correct.
all of the states?
Correct.
That's why that was originally established. Okay.
Yes. Yep. And like you said, those 19 powers were the delegated powers that we gave them in those contracts. And the federal government functions only in international jurisdictions. They were never, that's why I say the municipal law enforcement agencies, or even the municipal buildings that we have, were never supposed to be there. Never supposed to be there. We were never supposed to pay property taxes. We were never supposed to, all the things that they're doing with their codes and statutes, applying for permits, to do things on your own property that you own. These are not things that our American government ever gave any kind of delegated authority for them to do. All right, so let's get into jurisdiction. Has anybody ever heard that the word law is an acronym to describe the jurisdictions? Okay, it's land, air, and water, or, we call it sea jurisdiction. The 3 international and global jurisdictions. After the War of Independence, this is where after we won the War of Independence, there was quite some time of going back to Great Britain and to Rome, talking with the Pope, and negotiating terms with a peace treaty, right? So these are the three treaties, which are the Treaty of Paris, the Treaty of Versailles, and the Treaty of Ghent. These are the treaties that were the instrumentalities and the implementations of the contracts that we know as the constitutions. Okay, so we have the land jurisdiction treaty, air jurisdiction, and sea jurisdiction treaty. And the constitutions are the service contracts and are implementations of the treaties. If you go back and actually read those treaties, you'll kind of get a gist of, the negotiations that were taking place and the conversations that were taking place to then create these service contracts. Lee, go ahead.
So I'm just curious, when they talk in the, and I use this in quotation, news about the, Obama or Trump going to negotiate the Paris Accords, is that actually just modifying those original, like the Paris Treaty, or is it something different?
Yeah, it's something altogether different.
Okay.
Yeah, and just for the context of this presentation, Trump is working for the British territorial government. So he doesn't have any authority to start up the federal republic because only Americans can do that. He's working as a British territorial. That's why they call him the commander-in-chief, because technically the president of the British territorial is the one that oversees the Navy. And we're going to get into that in a little bit. Okay. But we have these 3 service contracts, okay, that represent 3 different jurisdictions. Okay. And the American subcontractor was called the Federal Republic. Okay. And the Holy Roman Empire municipal subcontractor held the Constitution for the United States. And then the British territorial subcontractor, operating in the sea jurisdiction, held the Constitution for the United States of America. Okay? And we gave them enumerated powers from the people. And we're going to, the capital P people. So when you guys read the preamble to the Constitution and it says, we the people, for many, many years, and I'm sure many of you maybe still believe this, but the capital P people, see, variations in letters matter. You know, whether you use capital letters or lowercase letters, it makes a difference, okay? The capital P people in we the people are the American government elected officials representing the people, lowercase p people. That means all the sovereigns, okay? So in those contracts, when it says we the people, those are the parties to those constitutions. And so it is our duty and our obligation, once we correct our status and become Americans in the American government, when you serve the American government and are an elected official, you are considered the capital P people, and you are supposed to enforce those constitutional guarantees. It's our job and our duty to make sure that they're upholding their side of their contract and that they're staying within the 19 enumerated powers. Yes, Lee, go ahead.
Sorry. So I'm just wondering, this like blue, the law, the land, air, the water. So is this where like the blue is the City of London and the pink is Vatican and the green is DC? So do all of our...
No. Well, the green actually is
the people.
All of
like
these...
It's supposed to be the people.
Well, right? The green is the American subcontractor. So think of this as how to better. So if I own my property, right, and I hire 3 subcontractors to come and do work on my house, I've got a roofer, I've got a lawn guy, and I got a power washer, right? Those are the 3 jurisdictions, just in terms that we can kind of relate it to.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Okay. Like, do the fees that like the municipalities collect go to the Vatican?
Absolutely.
Okay, so like everything that's collected in the courts
Everything that is collected
that,
from our taxes, our fees, our fines.
like our state, even like our property taxes on our home go,
Correct.
because it's municipal, go to the Vatican.
60% goes to the Vatican and 40% goes to the British territorial government. And
Oh,
these two have been colluding with each other ever since the
right.
Civil War and worked out this deal together.
Okay, got it. I didn't realize that the municipality was the Vatican. Okay,
Yeah,
thank you.
you're welcome. Corey, go ahead.
So just to make sure I'm tracking and to tie it back in, the we the people you were referring to would be a de jure jural assembly in the form of, say, maybe a ward, a county, or a state going to the national government and reminding them of something or taking them to court.
So we, the people, capital P people, are the elected officials in the entire assembly, not just the jural assembly. But so we've got four pillars in our government. We have a general assembly, we have a jural assembly, we have a militia assembly, and we have an international business assembly. So all the elected people within those pillars are considered the capital P people. And the capital P people are state citizens. They're American state citizens. They owe their allegiance to the state. And it's different than the soil jurisdiction, the county level jurisdiction government, because that's a national government, and the state assembly is an international government.
Okay.
Okay. All right. So the three branches of our federal government, subcontractors or employees, we call them our employees of the sovereign American government, are the 1787, this is the Treaty of Versailles, it's the land treaty. We call this the American Republic. It's the international land jurisdiction, Constitution for the United States of America, Federal Republic doing business as the United States, and they have United States citizens. These are the federal citizens. So if you become an American state national, and the Federal Republic is inoperable. We don't have a Federal Republic working right now. But once we do, they would be considered United States citizens. Okay. Then we have a municipal subcontractor, right? They received the Constitution of 1790. Now you can see the years from each of these, and the C jurisdiction came before the municipal, but it happened in succession, right? All three of them didn't come out at once, because if you can put yourself back in that time period, you had a government that was forming, and it was the United States, which was also called the Union. Okay, do you guys remember hearing the Union? The Union state is the United States, and that comprises of all the counties on America, and there's like 3,142 counties. Okay. And then 2 months later, in September of 1776, the Federation was formed, and that's the land jurisdiction. And that's what we're operating right now. The New Jersey Assembly is a land jurisdiction government. Okay? And those two American entities were operating quite well for 5 years. And then in 1787, they formed it was 1781 they formed, it was 5 years after 1776. In 1781, they formed the Confederation, and they operated under the Articles of Confederation. Okay? And when the South seceded from the Confederation during the Civil War time, the Confederation and the American Republic went, dormant. So, because they didn't have a quorum to reconvene. However, Lincoln, and this is, getting into a little bit more depth, is that Lincoln, when he ran for president, he actually didn't qualify to run for presidency of the American Federal Republic because he had a title of nobility. He held a bar card, a British accredited registry. He was an attorney, and so he held a title of nobility. And if you go look up the original 13th Amendment to the federal constitution, the American federal constitution, you will see that the original 13th Amendment was the Titles of Nobility Amendment. And it was ratified in 1819. And so they had that for a while. So clearly he knew that he, didn't qualify to run as presidency of the American Federal Republic. But what he did was he ran to be president of the United States of America, but he fooled everybody because it was a corporation and it was chartered by it's a Scottish corporation. It was chartered by a Scottish corporation. And so he put his rump Congress in place of the Southern delegates that seceded during that time period. And that's when they pushed all this chicanery. They pushed a different, they copied the Constitution, the British Territorial Constitution, made it a look-alike, sound-alike Constitution, and took out the 13th Amendment, the original 13th Amendment, and put in their look-alike, sound-alike, wording in that document, but then put in the 13th Amendment that we know of, where it was to abolish slavery. And for those of you who don't know this either, but he didn't actually abolish slavery. What he did was he removed the obligation of the slave owners to actually provide a roof over their heads, food in their stomachs, and clothing. So he freed the slave owners from their obligations to their indentured servants and set them free. And those people, the freed slaves, then didn't have they were stateless, and they didn't have anywhere to go. And then so then they were forced into the 14th Amendment citizenship. Okay, which, by the way, you can look up the Georgia Memorial of Congress. Danny, do you have that link that you can share? The 14th Amendment was never properly ratified because you need 2/3 of the vote to actually ratify it. And they didn't get 2/3 of the vote. So it was signed through an executive order, and it was actually signed. It wasn't even signed by the president, which is what, according to them, an executive order has to be signed by a president. It was signed by the Secretary of State. So the 14th Amendment is actually null and void, and anything thereafter is also null and void. All right. So just also a few other things about the municipal government is they are a theocracy. Okay, it's the Holy Roman Empire. It's just coined in a different way. And then the British Territorial is a democracy, which is not a surprise because they tell us to our faces, on TV and the news everywhere that we have a democracy, which the American government was never a democracy. It was always a Republican form of government. All right. And then the 10th Amendment is where we have proof. Okay, if you look up the 10th Amendment, it's the powers, it's the ability to do something. It enables them, okay? Not delegated to the United States, which is the Federal Republic, the American subcontractor, by the Constitution of 1787, nor prohibited by it to the states, are reserved to the states. That's international issues, respectively, or to the people, national issues. So it's telling you right there that anything that is not delegated in this contract is reserved back to the states or to the people. Lowercase p people, by the way, okay, because that's in your counties. That's a national jurisdiction. All right. I'm just going to read this article by our fiduciary. Okay. So understandings about the federal constitutions. The 3 federal constitutions are all service contracts. They all function exclusively in international jurisdiction. They are all implementations of peace treaties that ended the War of Independence. None of the constitutions create or grant anyone any rights. The rights owed to the American people are natural and inalienable. They can't even be given away. What the constitutions do establish are limits on federal power and guarantees to respect those limits. These guarantees are owed only and always to the American people and those American people, lowercase p people. They represent an international jurisdiction. Take note, constitutional guarantees are not guaranteed to foreign persons, not British subjects, not Roman municipal citizens of the United States, not Mexicans, not Canadians, not anyone at all but Americans. And I just want to pause there because, like we said in the beginning, everybody has already been unlawfully converted to a British subject through the birth certificate. Our mothers didn't have full disclosure, but nonetheless, they autographed it. And that's what converted you to a British subject. That's why they can impose the codes and the statutes and everything onto you. This is the status of the 3 federal constitutions as of December 1st, 2025. The Constitution for the lowercase u, United States of America, land jurisdiction contract granted to the States of America defaulted in March of 1861, reverted to the American Federation of States doing business as United States of America, unincorporated since 1776. The Constitution of the United States of America, sea jurisdiction contract granted to the British Territorial United States of America, Inc., President Donald J. Trump, still in effect, must remain in effect until defaulted or the underlying peace treaties are renegotiated in view of current circumstances. The Constitution of the United States Air Jurisdiction Contract, granted to the Holy Roman Empire subcontractor doing business as the United States, Inc., defaulted November 17, 2025, reverted to the American Federation of States doing business as the United States of America, unincorporated since 1776. The American Federation of States delegated all delegated enumerated powers to all 3 federal service providers and is now gathering the reverted contracts and assets under its authority as delegator. The role of the delegator is to receive, reorganize, and reassign to undertake the duties of the vacated service providers where needed or desired, to negotiate or renegotiate treaties as necessary, to seal and bind new service contracts as necessary, to deploy assets, to bring restitution, to recoup property, to heal breach of trust and declare the peace. The role of the fiduciary is both public and private, as the trust holder acting under the agency of the head of state to rescue and preserve the public and private assets of the American people. Everyone is equally empowered to reclaim the birthright that has been preserved for them. Everyone is equally responsible to do so. So what she means here, to reclaim your birthright, is that we're calling on all men and women to correct their political status so that you can gain back all your assets that has been stolen from you, including your identity. All right. Lee, go ahead. Oh, you're muted.
Sorry. Can you just unpack that 4th paragraph from the bottom about that the third Constitution, what that means, has like reverted back on December 1st.
Yes. So the municipal government has defaulted and went into bankruptcy. So when Doge was doing all the auditing, right?
Right.
That was due to the bankruptcy.
Was that, I mean, was that a legitimate act, or was that just him getting access to all kinds, him and his company getting access to all sorts of public records for, their own use? Where,
Well, I would venture to guess, Lee, is that he had to liquidate the municipal government, and so I think there was a an audit going on, but probably in the process was probably also taking things that he wanted for himself.
okay, because I don't think that was necessary. It was played to us like it was this grand act of justice,
Well, yeah,
but
he made it look like what he was doing was he was initiating, auditing something that everybody knows is corrupt. But really, what he should have done is told the public that an arm of the federal government is bankrupt and it's being liquidated.
right. And I mean, I think there is something about maybe breach of contract, or,
Hmm.
what is it? Not breach of contract, but
Breach of
affairs,
trust.
when you have conflict of interest, rather, because he is, his company receives all sorts of, government contracts for the things that he's doing. And then he got access to all of this like public data. And I thought it was kind of like to usurp the public data for this kind of like surveillance state that they're building.
Yeah, I mean, it's already here. The surveillance state is already here. But yeah, I agree, with the whole Palantir, that's all part of surveillance. We don't really try to focus on everything that they're doing. I mean, we like to keep an eye on it, but what we're doing here is getting our lawful government standing and getting it seated. Because when our fiduciary noticed the British monarch and the papal municipal authorities, the Holy Roman Empire, the Pope, they said, well, your government has been missing in action and in interregnum. So, we were just doing you a favor and providing services for you since, you were missing in action. So the answer to all of our issues here is really getting our government standing. And what we've been doing on the New Jersey Assembly is, number one, outreach. We've been doing this for the last, 4 years, doing outreach and education and trying to find different ways of getting this information out there. And then number two, trying to get people elected into positions. We haven't had any formal elections yet. We've done roll call vote to elect people into a position as a pro tem. And so right now I'm serving as the chairman pro tem for the New Jersey Assembly. Dan is the marshal at arms. Patisa is a recording secretary. And Alice is a coordinator. And Kathy serves on the Treasury Committee. So, we're trying to get this rocking and rolling. And we've also, if you go to our website, I'm going to put those things in the chat for you guys. I'll put our website. But if you go to our website, you can actually see our the notices that we sent out to the de facto government. And I just want to let you guys know, we say de facto because de facto means, if you go look it up in Black's Law Dictionary, it means a government that is not the lawful government. It's like a government standing in place because the real one is not there. Or like I think Corey said, the de jure government, it has been missing. De jure means the lawful, true American government. So I just put our website in the chat for you guys to grab, and then I'm gonna pull up the YouTube link for you guys too, if you just give me a second. And I'll open this up for questions now, if you guys have any questions.
Hi, Tim. I have one.
Hey, Kathy.
What happens if a person don't have no birth certificate, never had one? Are they still under the same laws that the ones who have birth certificates?
That is a really good question. My grandmother didn't have a birth certificate, and then she fought to get one. And if we knew this back then, we'd say, hey, no, you don't want that birth certificate. That is a good question. I mean, I think that they just continue to presume and assume that you're one of their citizenry, because right now, more and more people are waking up and learning about the fraud that's taken place. But many people are still in the dark about what's happened to us. And so they just, give their consent and allow them to, rule over them. But I don't know many people today that doesn't either have a driver's license. That's another form of identification that proves that you're one of their citizens. A social security card, all these things most people have. But yeah, I don't know if I answered your question, Kathy. I don't know about that.
Well, I was just wondering because my brother didn't have a birth certificate. They had to make up some kind of, I don't remember what it was, but he said they had to find some kind of information that was written. I guess he wrote it in the Bible back then, and they had to get the information from the Bible to make him up a paper to get a job when he got old enough to work.
That's
So he never
beautiful.
had one. He never had a birth certificate, but whatever they did back then, but that was in 1930 something, you know. But
Yeah,
he
and
retired from a job, he gets Social Security, get his pension, so.
yeah, and see, I think too is that that's typically how we used to do it. You could so what we have now for recording births is is a birth record. So anything that you register, you are giving you're giving it away to the government. So when you register your car, or you register your kids for school, whatever else that you register for, right? You get a car registration. All these things, you're giving your power and your authority and your property over to the government. And so back in the day, like you said, Kathy, they used to just record births in a family Bible, and that was considered a record. Also, a birth announcement in the newspaper is considered a public record. But today we also have a land recording office where we can record babies' births instead of having a birth certificate. And we've had somebody in Idaho who's had a baby on the land and had to go to a hospital and refused the birth certificate, and they didn't force it upon them. So it works. It's happening. Okay, Lee, go ahead.
Hi, sorry. It's just nice to be live with someone who
Yeah.
can know what I'm talking about. So I was just curious to know, I was reading something, is it like, or maybe you said it earlier, like, are there about 7 million people who have corrected their status? Like, what is this movement needs some traction, kind of quick. So, has your presence been increasing? How many people are following the state assembly? No, like, what state is the most awake?
Yeah, so we've got about a handful of states that are actually fully seated and standing. And what that means is that they are recognized as the lawful American government on their
Oh,
state.
really?
Mhm.
Oh, okay. I mean, because like, is like Tennessee one or something?
Ohio, I think Tennessee, um, Louisiana. I want to say Idaho, and I can't remember the last one off the top of my head.
Okay, and with that gentleman, the other person on the call was asking earlier. So, I mean, what is like the formal, like, once all of the states do get standing, is that when you have that kind of like new, like quorum or something? Like, how does this ever get made, like, right?
Yeah. So eventually we're going to have delegates that will that will be elected from their state to represent their state in a continental Congress. So, and that's our elections, So when you correct your political status, you don't have the you don't have the ability anymore to vote in their de facto elections, right? And so we have a lot of people coming in and saying, "Oh gosh, I won't be able to vote," and I'm like, "Yeah, but why would you want to vote for for that?"
Right.
You've got evil people in a de facto system that doesn't represent people; they represent corporations.
Hmm.
And so, but eventually we will have our elections and, go forward with our Continental Congress.
Okay. I was just curious to know, what the state of the nation is.
Yeah, and right now we're starting county tours. We did our first county tour in Morris.
Mhm.
We're going to be down in Burlington County this Saturday.
Okay.
We did direct mailers. We did about 1,000 direct mailers. We went down to the Burlington county malls down there, two of the malls down in that county, and handed out 2,000 flyers. I don't know what the turnout will be, but at our Morris County tour, we had it on a morning where it was a snowstorm. I mean, we came very close to canceling it, but we all managed to get there, and
Mhm.
we didn't expect anybody to show up, honestly,
Right.
because it was terrible. It took us like double the time to get there, and we ended up having 6 people show, and out of the 6, one of them corrected their status and was status corrected within a few weeks of attending the meeting.
Okay.
So we don't know what to expect again because sometimes this is sticker shock for people, and sometimes it takes a while for people to digest the information and really wrap their head around it. I know for me, when this information was presented to me, I thought the guy that was telling me this was crazy. And I backed away and I was like, oh, I got to get away from this guy. He's crazy. And then he just kept showing up. We were doing freedom rallies in my town here, and he kept showing up every Saturday morning. So I kept hearing it over and over, and it was repetitive. And after a while, I thought, you know what? I think I maybe need to look into this. So I started asking, where can I find? And I mean, you would be surprised. I was surprised. I was shocked at the amount of information that's actually out there. You just have to know to look for it. And I didn't. Who would have known to look for it?
Right. I've been just trying to intake this. I mean, I think I came across it maybe 2 years ago, and I'm just, like, right. It's like, no,
Yeah, it's denial.
exactly. Yeah, I
Yes.
guess I'm going through all the phases,
Yeah, I was there, I remember.
And so that's why I'm in New Jersey at the moment, and I was happy to find this because I would like, if it's possible, to like sit with a human because I've just been trying to collect data on my own, and then I don't know, what's exactly accurate and
We,
what's
we've got a couple of books, and then I'll get to you, Paul. But
okay.
so here's 3 books off the top of my head that are really great to read. Okay, we've got "You Know Something Is Wrong When: An Affidavit of Probable Cause."
Hmm.
Okay, and the other one is "Disclosure 101."
Okay.
And the last one is "America, Some Assembly Required."
Okay. I guess
They're
I've
all
seen.
written by Anna von Reitz, who is the fiduciary of our government.
Hmm.
Anna von Reitz is her pen name. Her real name is Anna Maria Reisinger.
Hmm. Okay.
Okay, but you'll be able to find those on Amazon, and they're pretty cheap. I want to say the You know something is wrong when is probably $25.
Okay.
And I think the others are probably like $15,
Okay.
you
Because I
know?
mean, I read like fruits from a poisonous tree and
Yeah, it's a good one.
um, something about a shadowy horse, which is like the
Oh,
whole,
Behold the Pale Horse.
yes. And that was a lot.
Yes, I know. William Cooper, yep.
So, okay, I don't want to take up the time, but thank you for your information.
You're welcome. Paul, go ahead.
Okay. I misspoke earlier, but and I'm probably way too new to be asking questions, but this was fascinating to me, and I thank you for it because I'm very glad to be learning about this, and there is a lot of sticker shock to it. The Roman
Yes.
Catholic Church part has got me, I almost fell out of my chair. And I'm pretty quick to jump on conspiracies, and so I'm kind of like attuned to there's something wrong, right? There's something drastically wrong. And this is
Yes.
eye-opening to me, and I can't wait to find out more about it. But I was going back and I'm trying to differentiate between this movement, if you would call it a movement. I don't know what you would call it. I'm going to call it a movement.
Well, we call it rebooting the lawful American
Reboot.
government. Yep.
Okay.
A
This
resurgence, maybe?
how does it differentiate between, I guess it differentiates because of the original contract is been null and voided. So the Convention of States is what I was talking about. It's Article 5 of the Constitution. There's 19 states who have already approved it. They need 23 to approve it, and what that does is it resets the entire Constitution. So
Yeah,
they
they
go.
can't do that.
They can't do that.
They can't
Why?
do that. Yeah. They can't do it because the lawful American government is actually already in session. And that would be us that could do anything with those constitutions because we were the delegators to that contract.
Right. So that clarifies what I was asking because it's more like part of the illegal actions of the current structure we have.
Yeah, and I wouldn't be too surprised. I mean, I don't know exactly. I know that there's a lot of good people involved in the Convention of States, and to be honest, like I can't blame them for, trying to figure out what the heck is going on here because that's where I was when COVID hit. I was like, there's something really seriously wrong here. And you know, I was just a part of a patriot group, trying to, and I was getting involved with different organizations like the Convention of States and, trying to figure out what was the best path. I mean, my husband and I were considering running for office. I mean, I never wanted to get into politics. I had no desire to ever be a part of politics whatsoever, or and any kind of government entity, only because I only knew of it as corrupt and evil. And so, that wasn't something I was interested in getting involved in. It was basically, I knew I had to sell my soul to the devil in order to do that. But during COVID, I mean, we got into some pretty desperate times. And I thought, all right, well, I'm just going to have to suck it up and get involved here because my country needs me. And then when I found out about this and did the research, like Lee, I read The Fruit from a Poisonous Tree. That was really wide eye-opening right there. And then just all the other, there's so many books. But I do want to show you guys this, okay? If you'd give me, just a second here. I'll have to pull it up. Let's see. Let's bring this. Nope. Is this it? Wait, where did that go? Is this it? Hmm. Shoot. Oh, here it is. Okay. So this is a lawsuit. Okay. This is a Supreme Court case. And as you can see right here, look at this. District of Columbia, a municipal corporation. So, I mean, there's so much proof, though. I mean, this is just one example. And then the next thing I want to show you, if you'd bear with me, I think this is this. So right here, this is the government website, okay? And as you can see, the Holy See is right there. Okay? These are all things that you guys can look up for yourself, and find them very simply. The Holy See is the universal government of the Catholic Church and operates from the Vatican City State, a sovereign independent territory. The Pope is the ruler of both the Vatican City State and the Holy See. The Holy See, as the supreme body of government of the Catholic Church, is a sovereign juridical entity under international law. All right. Okay. Let's stop screen sharing. Any other questions? Oh, we got Corey. Go ahead, Corey.
Yeah, what I was going to say earlier. So it was when you and Lay were talking, and it sort of dovetailed into what you were talking about just now, like as far as the veracity of the source of a lot of these the stuff we're reading. And what I was going to say was that I've been around the movement for a while, at least since 2013, 2014. And the one thing that I can say is that, like the PowerPoint presentation that you were given a few minutes ago, a lot of things that you were talking about, and I've done research on in the past. And part of my past experience is that I'm a paralegal. And when it comes to research, you always try to look for a primary, secondary source as a paralegal. You want to find something in a law book that you can research. And what I wanted to contribute, there are points that you were saying here tonight that you could write the Library of Congress on, and they'll tell you right to your face it's true. They'll tell you right to your face. Like if you write them and ask them, let's just say, for example, if you ask them, is the tax code voluntary? They'll write you a letter back, a person with a Juris Doctor degree, and they'll tell you, yeah, it's voluntary. So,
Right.
they won't lie to you and hide it from you. It's the truth, but it's just that, well, how are we going to get the enforcement? And I heard you say that on another call. How do you get to the enforcement? That's the problem.
Yeah, well, what we're doing right now, I'm also going to put in here too for you guys, pktfnews.org. So we have a peacekeeping task force. It's been chartered by the Federation, and the guys that run it, one is a retired Army veteran, another is a retired chief of police from Louisiana, and then there's a couple of other fellas on there and some women. But they're tasked with creating presentations and different material to reach out to different law enforcement agencies to present the information. And they are the mediators, trying to help with the transition, if you would, because there's going to be at some point a transition of power. And that's going to take place. It's going to depend on the people, the people have to step up and actually start serving in their government. And until, it's one thing to correct your status, but then it's another to actually work in your government and get the information, or get the work done. We've been missing in action for over 160 years. And so there's a lot of work to be done, Go ahead, Glenn.
Hey, Tammy, thanks. And I know I got a question we've emailed about a month or two ago about other organizations that, help people correct their statuses. And one of your comments back to me was, well, the method they use doesn't enable them to, I guess, participate in this new government you're speaking of. Can you maybe talk about that a bit more? I mean, if you're looking for more members, there's a lot of potentially more people who have corrected their status in a different way, and you could bring them into this. Or I just don't understand the delineation between one correcting their status and maybe by default becoming an American state citizen or national, versus having to do something in addition to become an American state national.
Yeah, that's a great question, Glenn, and I'm glad you asked it. So we have people that come from different fashions. And so just to let you guys know, our documents were created by an organization that first started it all, and they were called the Living Law Firm. And it consisted of about 1,000 men and women from many different professions. A lot of them were former attorneys that retired their bar cards and committed to getting these documents that we have, perfected, if you would. And it was done by trial and error as well. So we don't trust other people's documents because what has happened, Glenn, is that we have people that come in and try to infiltrate our assembly. And there's a lot of nefarious business out there. And so in order to mitigate that, we try to, we make it a rule that you have to use our paperwork to do it, because people will take their paperwork that they did from a different organization and it's not perfected. The wording in the documentation isn't perfected to where it needs to have certain language in there. And so then they start doing different things and then they get themselves in trouble. A prime example of it is there were people out in Colorado, we call them the Colorado Nine, where, I think it was an FBI agent infiltrated their assembly and was able to persuade and manipulate a group to try to take their state capital over. And so they were showing up, and they had, in Colorado you can carry there, and they were showing up with guns, and it was not a good scene. And so these are the things that we've done to protect our assembly and to protect the integrity of our assembly from those kinds of things taking place. And so, there's a various reasons that we stick to just our paperwork, and it doesn't cost anything. If anybody's going out there and somebody's charging you a couple $1,000s to correct your status, that's a scam. That's just a milking machine. We only charge $50 for the first recording, $60 if you want to do the 928 packet, which is we call it the full armor. And then any other additional documents, like if you want to revoke your marriage license and actually put on the record a lawful marriage. And we have baby deeds to protect your kids that are under the age of 21. Those are additional $30 each. So we don't charge, hundreds or thousands of dollars to correct your status. And we know our paperwork works. And we know that it's backed by, lawyers and people of good sound mind and knowledge that created those documents.
Okay, thank you. So you've got paperwork versions for people coming from a birth certificate situation versus people who have changed their status in other ways and maybe want to perfect it coming to.
Yeah, and our way is just very simple. So we require you to provide your birth certificate. And if you don't have a birth certificate and you were naturalized, your naturalization paperwork or your green card. If you're an illegal immigrant and you've been here for 7 years without any criminal record or federal government assistance, and you can have 2 witnesses that can attest to who you are. What else? We even accept federal employees. So people that currently work for the federal government, if they were born on this country, they qualify to be an American state national in their private capacity, but they would hold dual citizenship where they would be working for the federal subcontractor. And so, we have it's the same paperwork, but it's worded a little differently depending on your situation. So we just require, a form of identification, birth certificate, and 2 witnesses that know you for at least 7 years, and they have to be 21 years or older, and they're just attesting to who you say you are. And then we have a declaration of political status, and that's it. That's your first step to make you an American state national. It literally would take you, a few days to correct your status if you wanted to go ahead. It would require the schedule of our recording secretaries as well, because we get busy too. And, so that it would depend on how busy we are as to how fast, and then how fast you could get your witnesses to fill out your documents. So.
All right. Thank you, Tammy.
You're welcome. And, if anybody feels like they want to, go through a process of, maybe next month, I'd be willing to do a tutorial, if you would, on the process on how to correct your status. Or we also have on our YouTube channel, if you look up paperwork, there's, a presentation on our paperwork there too. So, anybody else have questions? No, you guys are quiet. All right. Well, I hope I answered all your questions. I hope that maybe this is starting to make sense. It's going to take a while to wrap your head around it, and allow yourself some time to digest the information. And we just welcome you to, come back and, email me with any questions. Oh, Alice, go ahead. Oh, you're muted.
I would like to apologize to Leah. She sent me an email at 4:30 this afternoon, and I didn't see it until I was almost ready to hop on. I forwarded it to her back, but I would like to apologize for the late notification that it was at 6:30 tonight. And
No worries. Thank you very much. Tammy replied, so I was able to make the call. So thanks for your efforts.
You're welcome.
All right. Anybody else? Any more questions? All right, guys. Well, thank you so much for hopping on. And, like I said, email us with any questions. You have our website, you have our YouTube channel, you have email address. So, just get in touch, and we'd love to have you come on board and come back to being an American, a living man or a living woman. All righty. Have a good night, guys.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Good night, everyone.
Good night, Kathy. Good night.
Night.